International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
On the 62nd day of the ongoing Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, more civilians, including children and women, have been martyred, raising the death toll to over 16,500 and more than 43,000 injured. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter, urging the UN Security Council to act on the war in Gaza. Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi has shared a government meeting during which draft executive decrees relating to several sectors were examined. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, dozens of Palestinian civilians, including children and women, have been killed and others have been injured, while dozens of homes, buildings, residential apartments and public and private properties have been destroyed in the ongoing Zionist occupation bombardment on the Gaza Strip by land, sea and air. A Wafa correspondent reported that occupation warplane bombed a mosque in the El Daraj neighborhood in the city of Gaza, killing at least 12 civilians and injuring dozens, in addition to the destruction of a number of nearby homes. More on the Zionist aggression on the Gaza Strip in its 62nd day with Saeed Bougazi.
According to correspondents on the spot, the occupation aircraft bombed homes in the old city of Gaza City in the vicinity of the Hammam al-Samra area, Palestine Square, a Zawiya market and the Jabalia parking lot, killing and injuring dozens, noting that ambulances were unable to reach the targeted areas and recover the dead and injured due to the indiscriminate shelling. The occupation's aircraft, artillery and tanks also bombed homes in the neighborhoods of Az-Zaytun, Al-Shuja'iyya and Al-Sabra east of Gaza, killing and wounding dozens of civilians. The indiscriminate bombing targeted the Saraya Junction in the Irrimal neighborhood west of Gaza City and led to the destruction of a number of residential buildings. Dozens were also killed and others were injured in the occupation's artillery shelling of two houses in Dir el-Balah in the central Gaza Strip. The areas of south of Khan Yunis also saw intense indiscriminate bombardment by aircraft and artillery during the land incursion of the occupation forces. Al-Qarara, Khuza'a, Abasan, while Sheikh Nasser saw a series of intense raids which killed and wounded dozens. The displaced people in Khan Yunis also live in extremely difficult humanitarian conditions due to the continuous targeting of the areas, the scarcity of materials, and the difficulty of heading to the city of Rafah due to the occupation's targeting of infrastructure and roads, forcing most of them to take rugged roads on foot.
The head of the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, Filippo Grandi, has said that a regional exodus of Palestinians from Gaza will be catastrophic, underlining that the priority is the return of the troops. I hope there will be no regional exodus of Palestinians, said the High Commissioner. We must never forget that 2/3 of the population of Gaza are already refugees from 1948 to 1949. He added, referring to the 1948 exile of the Palestinians, or Nakba, when some 760,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes. The International Association Action Aid has said that 80% of Gazans have become displaced and homeless, noting that there is now so far no safe place in Gaza due to the incessant bombardment by the Zionist army. Action Aid underlined in a press release that some 1.9 million people have been displaced inside the country, noting that Gazans are now undergoing a double evacuation following the bombardment of southern Gaza by the Zionist air forces. Doctors Without Borders has called on the Zionist entity to put an end to the indiscriminate bombings on Gaza and reiterated the need for a ceasefire. The humanitarian organization said that for the first time yesterday, Wednesday, the number of martyrs who were taken to the Al-Aqsa hospital exceeded the number of injured, stating that at least 115 people were martyred in 24 hours and that the hospital and morgue were full. The Zionist occupation forces resumed their military offensive on the Gaza Strip on December 1st after the end of a week-long humanitarian pause. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said that the head of the Zionist occupation government, Netanyahu, will be prosecuted in one way or another before international judicial bodies for his war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. In fact, the fight for this has already begun. Some 3,000 lawyers have already filed a complaint with the International Criminal Court, ICC, Erdogan said in a statement to the media. Continuing in the same vein, the Turkish president denounced the support and blatant bias of the West in favor of the Zionist entity. The Palestinian Journalists Union has revealed that 75 journalists and other media workers have been killed since the start of the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip on October 7. The Guild of Media Professionals also counts 80 injured, 43 detained, and 2 missing. The union said in a statement, noting that 60 families of journalists are now homeless after the demolition of their homes by the Zionist army. According to the same source, the Zionist occupation forces have destroyed 63 journalist offices, disrupted the work of 50 or 25 local radio stations, 24 in Gaza and 1 in the West Bank, and closed and restricted the work of 3 media agencies. The union said it was working to provide journalists with the means to continue their work in the Gaza Strip. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned against an imminent total collapse of law and order in the Gaza Strip, which has been subjected to bombardments by the Zionist occupation forces, in an unprecedented letter to the Security Council urging a humanitarian ceasefire. Saad Bougazi has more.
With the constant bombardment by the Zionist armed forces and in the absence of shelter or the minimum to survive, I expect a total collapse of law and order soon due to the desperate conditions which would make even limited humanitarian assistance impossible, wrote Antonio Guterres, invoking Article 99 of the Charter for the first time since his arrival at the head of the United Nations in 2017. This article allows him to draw the attention of the Council to an issue that could endanger the maintenance of international peace and security. An even worse situation could arise, including epidemics and increased pressure for mass displacement to neighboring countries, he added. While humanitarian aid transiting through the Rafah crossing between Egypt and the Gaza Strip is insufficient, we are simply unable to reach those who need help inside Gaza, he notes. The capacities of the United Nations and its humanitarian partners have been decimated by shortages of supplies, lack of fuel, disruption of communications, and growing insecurity. Antonio Guterres said that there is a serious risk of collapse of the humanitarian system, warning that the situation is deteriorating rapidly towards a catastrophe that could have irreversible consequences for the Palestinians as a whole and for peace and security in the region. He underlined that the international community has a responsibility to use all this influence to prevent further escalation and bring this crisis to an end, calling on the members of the Security Council to exert pressure to avert a humanitarian catastrophe.
And the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates has welcomed the initiative of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to convene a Security Council session on the humanitarian situation in Gaza in order to assume its responsibilities and impose an immediate ceasefire in the Palestinian enclave, Wafa news agency reported. In a press release, the ministry described this initiative as a necessary step and in line with the tasks assigned to the Council and to the institutions of international legitimacy, and in line with international warnings regarding the repercussions of the humanitarian catastrophe that has beset the Palestinians in Gaza as a result of the genocidal war launched by the Zionist entity. The director of the World Health Organization WHO, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, has announced his support for the activation by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres of Article 99 of the United Nations Charter. This is what he wrote on Wednesday on the X platform, commenting on Guterres' activation of Article 99 of the UN Charter to describe the situation in the Gaza Strip as a threat to international peace and security. Ghebreyesus said that the health system in Gaza is on the verge of collapse. He stressed the need for peace for health.
The Norwegian Refugee Council is one of the many humanitarian organizations that have
In the West Bank, Zionist occupation forces stormed the city of Tulkarem after midnight on Wednesday amid the heavy firing of live bullets, leading to confrontations. According to a WAFA correspondent, large Zionist occupation forces accompanied by heavy machinery and bulldozers stormed the city of Tulkarem from the west side and headed toward the refugee camps of Tulkarem and Nur Shams amid the heavy firing of live ammunition, leading to violent confrontations with residents. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriate has called on the international community and the U.S. administration to take urgent action to prevent a march planned by Zionist extremists today, Thursday, towards the Al-Aqsa Mosque with a view to taking control of it. In a statement quoted by the WAFA press agency, the ministry said that this march constitutes the greatest provocation ever seen, especially in the light of the current circumstances in the Gaza Strip. Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo has said that his government will bar Zionist extremists who commit violence in the West Bank from entering the country, underlined that violence against civilians will have consequences, stating that Belgium will work with the U.S. on imposing sanctions on Israel settlers responsible for violence in the West Bank and will urge the EU to take similar actions. The leaders of the G7 countries meeting Wednesday via video conference called for more urgent action to address the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip, saying they supported further pauses and reaffirmed their support for the creation of a Palestinian state. We are determined to work closely with our partners to contribute to create the conditions necessary for long-term sustainable solutions for Gaza, they said in a statement referring to the need for a return to a broader peace process. Prime Minister Nadir al-Arbawi chaired a government meeting on Wednesday during which draft executive decrees concerning several sectors were examined, according to a press release issued by the Prime Minister's office. The meeting focused notably on the draft executive decree setting out the organization and operation of the National Urban and Land Agency in implementation of the instructions of the President of the Republic concerning the completion of the promulgation of executive decrees relating to economic land intended for investment projects and the development of national economy. The government also examined a draft executive decree allocating land for the construction of housing and public facilities in certain municipalities of the province of Tismsilt. And the government meeting also discussed the amended version of the preliminary draft law on the film industry in the light of the directives given by the President of the Republic. The proceedings of the Summit of Africa Ministers in charge of startups, which saw the participation of 34 countries, wound up yesterday, Wednesday, in Algiers, with the adoption of the Algiers Declaration for the Development of Startups. At the close of the proceedings, the participants welcomed the interest shown by the country's senior authorities in young people with innovative ideas and projects. The preliminary draft resolution on the fight against the brain drain on the continent, which the African countries led by Algeria will submit to the African Union, was adopted by all the summit participants who praised Algeria's leading role in the field of startups. And the participants also praised Algeria's dynamism and the interest shown by the country's high authorities in young people with innovative ideas and projects and in startups, considering that this is a model for all African countries to follow in the field of startups. And finally, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the national community abroad has said in a press release that Algeria remains ready to intensify its efforts to overcome the challenges of protecting and upholding human rights and the protection of their defenders, and to finalize the harmonization of its national legal arsenal to bring it into line with the provisions of the 2020 Constitution. The press release issued at the end of the visit to Algeria from 25 November to 5 December by the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights defenders, Marie Lawlor, notes that the Special Rapporteur highlighted the strong human rights protection provided by the Constitution of 2020 and underlines the extraordinary efforts that have been made to facilitate this fruitful visit. With this, we come to the end of this news bulletin for today. Time now for our weekly program, starting with this interview by my colleague Mariam Debji, and will be followed by another program on Culture in Algeria by my colleague Asya Bakar. With this, we come to the end of it. We'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Thank you.
The Norwegian Refugee Council is one of the many humanitarian organizations that have said that the humanitarian post must pave the way for a lasting ceasefire. The English service of Radio Algeria International has contacted in Amman the media advisor for the Norwegian Refugee Council in the Middle East, Mr. Ahmed Bayram, who spoke about the living conditions of the Palestinian refugees amid all the chaos.
The living conditions of the Palestinians displaced in this conflict have been appalling. I mean, first of all, these people have been displaced multiple times. Don't forget they are first or second generation refugees. Now they are reliving the painful experience of what happened all these years back. A lot of them speak vividly about the areas that used to be and no more, like Jabalia camp, for example, in the north, which has been, complete neighborhoods, entire neighborhoods have been flattened. These people have been displaced again. There is no hope of them going back to their home anytime soon because of the nature of the destruction.
Mr. Bayram also spoke about the importance of a ceasefire for the delivery of aid by humanitarian organizations.
The only way to ease the suffering is, as a first step, to agree to a complete ceasefire, for Israel to lift the siege on Gaza, for Israel to stop attacking civilian infrastructure, civilian homes, civilian facilities, and for Israel to commit to giving Palestinians the right to live peacefully in Gaza, to release all hostages, to provide unfettered access to aid organizations so they can do their job and provide all life-saving support that they have been providing.
According to Mr. Bayram, the end of the Israeli occupation and the lifting of the siege are the main conditions for a settlement of the conflict.
And finally, we think that there are root causes that are causing violation and the continuous suffering of Palestinians. As a humanitarian organization that works to also defend the legal rights of Palestinians, we have been saying and we have been vocal about the fact that occupation has driven a lot of this suffering. The siege on Gaza, which has lasted 16 years now, the expansion of settlements in the West Bank, the unprecedented levels of violence by settlers against Palestinians in the West Bank, the attacks on their homes, the attacks on their property, not to mention, of course, the level of destruction and deadly attacks on Gaza. So in short, Palestinian rights are not being respected by Israel in a lot of areas, and we think that Israel has a duty as an occupier to provide protection, to provide dignity, dignified means of life, instead of encouraging settlers in so many instances to attack Palestinians and obviously attacking civilian infrastructure in Gaza. So we continue to call for the occupation to end and for Palestinians to live in dignity so they can recover and prosper.
That was the media advisor for the Norwegian Refugee Council in the Middle East, Mr. Ahmed Bayram.
Hello and welcome to our weekly program Destination Algeria. I'm Jamal Thamani. There are a number of great destinations in Algeria just waiting to be discovered. A curious mixture of cultures and influences, Algeria has something interesting to see in just about every city. The country is the first largest on the African continent, so you can be sure that there are plenty of towns and cities to visit. Let's visit Algeria's fascinating destinations, you and I, together. Snow is covering several cities of Algeria in this period of the year. We take you today to one of the best regions of Algeria to visit during winter, including the mountains of Djurdjara. Mohamed Barazwan.
taking its name from the Jojoran Massif that lies within its boundaries. The Jojora National Park in the northwest region of Algeria consists of three main sections: eastern, western and central, extending into the districts of Bouira to the south and Tizi Ouzou to the north. With its many dense forests, deep gorges and unusual grottos, the park is widely considered to have some of the most beautiful scenery in Algeria. It is also home to varied flora and fauna, including the endangered Barbary macaque. The outstanding physical features of the Jojora National Park include the mountain peaks of the Jojoran Massif of the Grand Kabylie, part of the Tel Atlas Mountains of Algeria. At a height of 2,308 meters, Lala Khadija is the highest part of the Jojoran Massif and one of Algeria's highest mountains. The park is well watered by springs and streams and has a number of glacial lakes within its boundaries. On the southeastern slopes of the Jojoran Massif, there are dense Atlas cedar forest grows, while at lower altitudes there are endemic pine and juniper trees. The Jojora National Park is a refuge for a wide variety of fauna, including hyena, wild boar, hare, wildcat, mongoose, red fox, and the Barbary macaque, sometimes referred to as the Barbary ape, although it is in fact not an ape, but a member of the Old World monkey species. Birdie enthusiasts will appreciate a variety of birds in the park, which include a number of raptors such as the black vulture, booted eagle, long-legged buzzard, and golden eagle. The main visitor center for the Jojora National Park is located at Tikshda, along with hotels and campsites. The park was created in September 1925. It is a national park to protect this unique ecosystem for the people of Algeria and for visitors to this fascinating country to enjoy.
You are listening to Destination Algeria on Radio Algeria International, now from the beautiful mountains of Jojora to the National Park of Sharia with Essia Bekara.
Taking its name from a nearby town, the Shwea National Park is located in the Blida province of the northwest region of Algeria. The park incorporates the mountainous area of the Blida Atlas, part of the Tel Atlas range, where the snow skiing station of Shwea is situated. The Shwea skiing station is one of the few in Africa that can offer skiing on natural snow. Although the Shwea National Park is one of Algeria's smallest protected areas, it has varied terrain and abundant flora, providing suitable habitats for a variety of animals and birds, including a number of magnificent raptor species. The ancient Atlas cedar forests of the park are home to a population of Barbary macaque, an old world monkey species that is rated as endangered on the red list of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. The distinguishing feature of the Barbary macaque is its short stump of a tail, which is believed to have come about as a result of centuries of disuse. There are numerous walking trails within the Shwea National Park that have been designed for visitors to enjoy the rich natural beauty of this charming Algerian national park, which is well worth visiting.
Thank you for listening. I'm Jamel Soumeni. Do join us next Friday for another edition of Destination Algeria.